My name is Daniela Novak, and I'm 29 years old. 2 months ago, I walked into my father's private library for what he called a family matter of utmost importance, and before I could even sit down, he backhanded me so hard across the face that I tasted blood. "You get nothing," he snarled, throwing a copy of his will at my feet. "Not one penny of my $199 million. You're a disappointment, a failure, and frankly, I'm ashamed to call you my daughter." My mother didn't even look up from her champagne. My sister laughed. My brother nodded in agreement. As I stood there with my cheek burning and tears threatening to fall, I felt the envelope in my jacket pocket, the DNA test results that had arrived just that morning, results that would reveal I wasn't actually their daughter at all. What I didn't know was that those results would trigger an FBI investigation uncovering a black market baby trafficking ring, expose my family's darkest secret, and prove that the daughter they were disinheriting was actually the rightful heir to a fortune twice the size of theirs. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button, because this story about stolen identity, brutal rejection, and the truth that destroys everything will show you that sometimes the family that hates you isn't even your family at all. Let me take you back to the beginning, to help you understand the 29 years of hell that led to that moment in the library. The Novak family built their empire on real estate development, transforming the Miami skyline with luxury high-rises and exclusive resorts. My grandfather, Viktor Novak, immigrated from Czech Republic in 1965 with nothing but construction skills and relentless ambition. He started with small residential projects, saved every dollar, reinvested everything, and by the time my father was born, Viktor owned properties across South Florida worth millions. My father, Damian Novak, inherited the business when I was 3 years old and expanded it aggressively. He was a force of nature, 6'3" with ice blue eyes that could freeze you mid-sentence, silver hair he wore slicked back like some movie villain, and a presence that made rooms go quiet when he entered. He built skyscrapers, luxury hotels, exclusive country clubs, transforming the family business from successful to legendary. By the time I have clear memories, Novak Properties was worth close to $200 million, and Dad ruled it like a kingdom with himself as undisputed king. My mother, Svetlana, came from Russian old money, the kind of wealth that bought influence and connections American fortunes couldn't touch. She was beautiful in that cold, untouchable way, with platinum blonde hair, surgically perfected features, and a wardrobe that cost more than most people's houses. She spoke 5 languages fluently, moved through elite social circles with practiced grace, and treated motherhood like an inconvenient obligation she'd been forced to fulfill for appearances. I can count on one hand the number of times she hugged me, and most of those were when photographers were present at company galas. My siblings fit perfectly into this world of luxury and ruthlessness. My older brother, Alexei, was 33 and Dad's mirror image, tall, commanding, arrogant, with the same calculating business mind and complete absence of empathy. He'd graduated from Wharton, joined Novak Properties immediately, and spent the last decade learning to be exactly like our father, cold, strategic, and willing to destroy anyone who stood in his way. My younger sister, Katerina, was 25 and Mom's clone, stunning, manipulative, and obsessed with status. She'd never worked a day in her life, living off the family fortune while maintaining her Instagram empire of luxury lifestyle content. She had 500,000 followers who envied her designer clothes, exotic vacations, and seemingly perfect life. What they didn't see was the cruelty beneath the beauty, the casual viciousness she directed at anyone she considered beneath her, especially me. Growing up in the Novak mansion should have been paradise. Our waterfront estate in Coral Gables sprawled across 5 acres with 14 bedrooms, an Olympic-sized pool, a private dock with 2 yachts, and gardens maintained by a full-time staff of 6. We had drivers, housekeepers, private chefs, and every material luxury imaginable. But behind the gates and security cameras, I was living in a prison where I was the only inmate. The problems started early, evident in every family photograph where I stood out like a mistake someone had forgotten to edit out. While Alexei and Katerina had inherited Dad's height and sharp features, Mom's pale coloring and those distinctive ice blue Novak eyes, I was different in every measurable way. I was shorter, darker, with warm brown eyes instead of blue, features that didn't match anyone in our extensive family tree, and skin that tanned easily instead of burning like theirs did. By the time I was 7, I'd overheard enough comments at family gatherings to know people noticed. She doesn't look much like the others, does she? Maybe she takes after some distant relative? Strange how genetics work sometimes, though really, not a trace of Victor in her. The explanations were always awkward, quickly followed by someone changing the subject while glancing at my parents with obvious discomfort. But physical differences were nothing compared to the emotional wasteland of my childhood. From my earliest memories, I felt like a ghost in my own home, present but never truly seen, acknowledged but never valued. Family dinners were performances where Alexei and Dad discussed real estate strategies, where Katerina showed Mom photos from her latest photo shoot, where I sat silently because any attempt to contribute was met with cold stares or cutting remarks. When I was 9, I won first place in the regional spelling bee, competing against kids from all the best private schools in Florida. I was so proud, so certain this achievement would finally make them notice me, make them proud. I ran into Dad's home office with my trophy, practically vibrating with excitement. He glanced up from his architectural plans with obvious irritation. "What do you want, Daniela?" "I'm working on the Brickell project. I won the spelling bee. Look, I got first place out of 200 kids." I held up my trophy like it was made of gold. He stared at it for exactly 3 seconds, then returned his attention to his plans. Spelling. How practical. Alexei just closed his first real estate deal, made the company $50,000. That's an accomplishment. This is just words. He waved dismissively. Close the door on your way out. That moment, standing in his office holding my trophy while he literally turned his back on me, taught me that nothing I did would ever matter to him. Not grades, not awards, not achievements. I simply didn't count. School became my refuge and my obsession. If I couldn't earn love at home, maybe I could earn value through excellence. I became valedictorian at my private academy, scored perfect on my SATs, got accepted to Columbia University with a full academic scholarship. The scholarship part infuriated my father, who saw it as humiliating that his daughter needed financial assistance when the family was worth nearly $200 million. "It makes us look poor," he'd complain to Mom at dinner, as if I wasn't sitting right there. "Like we can't afford Columbia's tuition. It's embarrassing." "Then pay the full tuition," I'd replied, hurt overriding caution. I didn't ask for the scholarship. Columbia offered it based on my academic record. His fist slammed on the table so hard the crystal glasses jumped. "Don't you dare talk back to me. You should be grateful we're allowing you to go at all instead of putting you to work at one of our properties managing housekeeping staff, which is probably all you're qualified for anyway." Alexei had smirked. Katerina had laughed openly. Mom had simply sipped her wine, completely unbothered by the cruelty. At Columbia, I majored in architecture and urban planning with a minor in business, maintaining a 3.95 GPA while working part-time at a community housing nonprofit. For the first time in my life, I found people who valued compassion, creativity, and hard work over money and status. My roommate and best friend, Carmen Rodriguez, came from a working-class family in the Bronx and had more genuine warmth in her little finger than my entire biological family possessed. It was Carmen who first said what I'd been afraid to think. We were studying in our dorm room senior year, and I'd just gotten off a brutal phone call with my mother, who'd spent 20 minutes criticizing my appearance, my career plans, and my general existence before hanging up without saying goodbye. "Danny," Carmen said carefully, setting down her textbook. "I need to say something, and please don't be mad. Your family is toxic. Like, genuinely abusive. The way they talk to you, the way they dismiss everything you do, it's not normal. It's not your fault." The suggestion that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the problem cracked something open inside me. I'd spent 22 years believing that if I could just be better, smarter, more beautiful, more valuable, then they'd finally love me. The possibility that their rejection wasn't about my inadequacy but about their cruelty was revolutionary. After graduation, I deliberately chose a different path than Novak Properties. I joined a sustainable urban development firm in Brooklyn, designing affordable housing projects and community spaces. The work paid modestly compared to my family's wealth, but it felt meaningful in a way that luxury high-rises never could. My father's reaction to my career choice was predictably volcanic. "You're wasting your Columbia degree on housing for poor people," he'd shouted over the phone. "You could be working for Novak Properties, learning the business, actually contributing something valuable to this family." "You never wanted me at Novak Properties," I'd shot back, finally finding my voice. "You made that clear every single day of my life. You wanted Alexei to inherit everything, and he has. I'm building my own career. Because you're selfish and ungrateful. You have no concept of family loyalty or legacy. You're an embarrassment to the Novak name, and frankly, I'm starting to wish we'd never." He'd stopped abruptly, and I heard Mom say something sharp in the background. "Just stay in New York. Don't bother coming home for holidays. We're better off without your negative presence." The rejection should have destroyed me, but instead it freed me. I threw myself into my work, designing innovative housing solutions, winning awards for sustainable development, building a reputation in my field. Within 5 years, I was promoted to senior architect and was leading major projects that actually improved people's lives. My personal life bloomed too. I met Marcus Chen at an urban planning conference. He was a civil engineer from California, brilliant, kind, funny, with a close-knit family that welcomed me with open arms. His parents treated me with more affection in one weekend visit than the Novaks had shown in 29 years. When Marcus proposed after 3 years together, I cried happy tears and said yes without hesitation. I called my parents to share the news, still foolishly hoping this milestone might bridge the gap. Mom answered with her usual cool tone. "Yes? I'm engaged," I said, trying to inject happiness into my voice despite her coldness. "His name is Marcus Chen, he's a civil engineer, we met at." "Chen?" She cut me off, and I could hear ice cubes clinking in her glass. "Is he Chinese?" "Damien, she's marrying some Chinese man." Dad's voice boomed in the background, loud enough for me to hear clearly. "Absolutely not. Tell her she's forbidden from marrying outside her culture. The Novak bloodline doesn't mix with." "I'm 28 years old," I interrupted, anger finally overriding hurt. "I don't need your permission or your approval. I'm calling as a courtesy, not to ask for your blessing." "Then don't bother calling at all," Mom said flatly. "You want to marry beneath yourself, go ahead. But don't expect us to attend or contribute financially. You've made your choice." She hung up without another word. I stood there holding my phone, shaking with rage and grief, while Marcus held me. "They don't deserve you," he said quietly. "They never did. Let's have the wedding we want, with people who actually love us." He was right. We planned a beautiful ceremony in Central Park with our closest friends and Marcus's warm, loving family. I sent my parents an invitation with no real expectation, just a final gesture of closure. The response came via email from my father's assistant. "The Novak family regrets they are unable to attend due to prior commitments." Alexei and Katerina didn't even bother to respond. The wedding was perfect anyway. Marcus's mother walked me down the aisle, tears of joy streaming down her face. His father gave a toast about gaining a daughter and welcoming me into their family. For the first time in my life, I felt celebrated simply for existing, valued for who I was rather than what I could provide. But the wounds still festered beneath the surface. On our honeymoon in Croatia, Marcus found me crying on our hotel balcony at 2 in the morning. "Talk to me," he said gently, wrapping me in his arms. "I just keep wondering what's fundamentally wrong with me," I admitted through tears. "Why they've always hated me. Why I was never good enough no matter what I achieved. There has to be something broken in me." Marcus held me quietly for a long moment, then said something that changed everything. "Or maybe there's something broken in them. Danny, have you ever thought about taking one of those DNA tests? The ancestry ones? Maybe understanding your genetic background would give you some answers. Or at least some peace about who you really are. The suggestion planted itself in my brain like a seed. 2 weeks after returning from our honeymoon, I ordered a comprehensive DNA and ancestry kit online. It arrived in discreet packaging, and I followed the instructions carefully: swab the inside of my cheek, seal the sample, mail it to the laboratory. Then I waited 8 excruciating weeks, trying not to obsess while simultaneously checking my email constantly for updates. The notification email arrived on a Wednesday morning while I was at my desk reviewing blueprints for a community center project. Your DNA results are ready. My hands trembled so badly I could barely click the link. I called Marcus immediately, and he left his job site to meet me at a coffee shop near my office so we could check the results together. The ancestry breakdown loaded first, and I stared at the screen in complete confusion. I'd expected to see Czech heritage from Dad's side, maybe Russian from Mom's background, possibly some Eastern European mix. Instead, the results showed something entirely different: 52% Filipino, 28% Spanish, 15% Chinese, 5% Indigenous Pacific Islander. 0 Czech. 0 Russian. 0 Eastern European of any kind. That can't be right, I whispered, refreshing the page multiple times. The results remained unchanged. Marcus's engineering mind went straight to logic. Danny, if there's no Czech or Russian DNA at all, then Damien and Svetlana can't be your biological parents. Neither of them. Before I could process his words, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered automatically, my brain still reeling. Hello? Ms. Novak? This is Dr. Helen Cordova from Gene Trace Laboratory. I'm calling because your DNA results have triggered multiple alerts in our system, and I need to speak with you urgently. First question, were you adopted? No, I said, my voice sounding hollow. At least, not that I was ever told. I see. Second question, do you have any reason to believe that the people you think are your parents might not be your biological parents? I just found out about 5 minutes ago that they definitely aren't, I managed to say. Dr. Cordova was quiet for a moment. Ms. Novak, I need to inform you that your DNA profile matches someone in our database. Actually, multiple people. A missing person case from 1994 and 2 living individuals who submitted their DNA looking for a missing family member. Specifically, a baby girl who disappeared from Manila, Philippines, in December 1994. The coffee shop seemed to tilt around me. Marcus grabbed my arm to steady me. What are you saying? I whispered. I'm saying that your DNA matches the genetic profile of Isabella Reyes, an infant who was reported kidnapped from her home in Manila when she was 6 months old. Her parents, Ramon and Maria Reyes, submitted their DNA to multiple international databases years ago. They've been searching for their daughter for 29 years. Ms. Novak, I've already notified the appropriate authorities as required by law in cases involving kidnapping. The FBI will want to speak with you. But first, I need to ask, do you have any memories from before age 4 or 5? I realized with growing horror that I didn't. My earliest clear memory was from kindergarten, around age 5. Everything before that was blank, empty, as if those years had been erased completely. No, I said, my voice breaking. I don't remember anything before kindergarten. That's consistent with what we see in childhood trauma cases or when a child is relocated at a very young age. Ms. Novak, there's more. Your DNA also matches 2 other individuals in our system, your biological siblings. You have a brother and a sister in the Philippines who've been searching for you. I couldn't breathe. Marcus took the phone from my trembling hands and spoke to Dr. Cordova, getting details, asking questions, taking notes in his precise engineer's handwriting. When he finally hung up, we sat in stunned silence while my entire identity shattered around me. I was kidnapped, I finally said aloud, testing the horrible truth. Damien and Svetlana aren't my parents. They stole me from a family in the Philippines. That's why I never fit. That's why they always treated me like garbage. Because I wasn't supposed to be theirs. Because I was never really theirs at all. Marcus pulled me close, and I sobbed into his chest while other coffee shop customers pretended not to stare. "We need to call the FBI," he said quietly. "And probably a lawyer. This is going to explode fast." He was right. Within hours, FBI agents were in our apartment, asking careful questions, taking additional DNA samples for verification, showing me photographs that made my heart stop. Photos of a Filipino couple, older now but younger in earlier pictures, holding a baby girl with my eyes, my nose, my smile. Not anomalies in the Novak family but perfectly normal, expected, correct. "These are Ramon and Maria Reyes," Agent Williams explained gently, spreading photos across our dining table. In December 1994, they were living in Manila with their 3 children, Diego age 4, Isabella, age 6 months, and Maria was pregnant with their third, Sofia. One evening, while Maria was at the market and Ramon was working, someone broke into their home and took Isabella from her crib. The nanny who was watching the children was found unconscious, drugged. By the time she woke up, the baby was gone. How did I end up with the Novaks? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer would be devastating. Agent Williams exchanged glances with her partner, Agent Torres. "That's what we're still piecing together, but here's what we know. Damian and Svetlana Novak were in the Philippines in December 1994 for business, meeting with developers about a potential resort project in Cebu. They returned to Miami in early January 1995 with a baby girl they claimed was born via surrogacy in Manila. They had documents, supposedly legitimate, supporting that story. Forged documents, Agent Torres added. We're working with Philippine authorities to trace how they obtained them. But the timeline matches perfectly, and your DNA doesn't lie. You're Isabella Reyes, kidnapped from Manila when you were 6 months old." The next 2 weeks were a nightmare of interviews, statements, DNA verification tests, and media attention we desperately tried to contain. The story was too explosive to keep quiet. Wealthy Miami real estate moguls had apparently purchased or stolen a baby from the Philippines and raised her as their own for 29 years, all while treating her like something they regretted bringing home. When the news broke, it became an international scandal, trending on every social media platform, covered by news outlets in multiple countries. Through it all, I couldn't stop thinking about the will, the family meeting that Damian had scheduled for the following month. He'd sent me a formal letter demanding my presence in Miami for important family business regarding your future and this family's legacy. Now I understood with perfect, painful clarity what he'd planned: a public disinheritance, his final rejection, the ultimate statement that I had never been and would never be his daughter. Part of me wanted to refuse to go, to cut all ties immediately and begin building a relationship with my biological family, who had been sobbing with joy and disbelief during our video calls from Manila. Ramon was a retired teacher, Maria a seamstress. They lived modestly but richly in love, with my brother Diego now a doctor and my sister Sofia a nurse. They'd shown me more genuine affection in 3 video conversations than the Novaks had in 29 years. But another part of me needed closure. Needed to face Damian and Svetlana knowing the truth. Needed to see their faces when their lies collapsed around them. Carmen tried to talk me out of going. "Danny, they kidnapped you, abused you for your entire childhood, and now they want to publicly humiliate you one more time. You don't owe them anything, not even your presence." "I know," I said. "But I need to do this. I need to look them in the eye while they try to erase me, knowing that I'm about to erase them instead." So 4 weeks after receiving the DNA results, with FBI agents coordinating with local police and Marcus by my side for support, I flew to Miami for the will reading. The DNA results were in my bag, along with a letter from Ramon and Maria Reyes and legal documents Agent Williams had helped me prepare. The Novak estate looked exactly as I remembered: imposing, beautiful, cold. The housekeeper, Rosa, answered the door, and her eyes immediately filled with tears when she saw me. She'd always been kind, one of the few sources of warmth in that frozen house. "Miss Daniela," she whispered in Spanish, pulling me aside. "I didn't know. I swear on my mother's grave, I didn't know what they'd done." "I believe you, Rosa," I said, hugging her briefly. "None of this is your fault." She led me to the library, where the family had gathered like actors assembling for a performance. Damien sat in his leather chair behind the massive desk, looking every bit the powerful patriarch. Svetlana perched on the velvet sofa, already on her second glass of champagne despite it being barely 2 in the afternoon. Alexei stood by the window in an expensive suit, arms crossed, looking annoyed at having his schedule interrupted. Katerina sat filing her nails, phone propped up to record, probably planning to make content out of whatever drama unfolded. The family attorney, Richard Morrison, sat uncomfortably in one of the client chairs, expensive briefcase open beside him. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, and I'd later learn he'd tried repeatedly to talk Damien out of this public will reading, calling it unnecessarily cruel and potentially legally problematic. Damien had insisted, eager for his final performance of rejection. "You're late," Damien said coldly as I entered, deliberately not offering me a seat. Marcus remained in the doorway, a silent pillar of support. "Traffic from the airport," I replied simply, remaining standing. I wasn't going to make this easy for him. Richard cleared his throat nervously. "Perhaps we should begin? I have several other appointments this afternoon." Damien nodded curtly, clearly relishing this moment. "Read it." What followed was the most excruciating 20 minutes of my life up to that point. Richard read through the will methodically, his voice growing increasingly uncomfortable with each section. Massive bequests to Alexei, including controlling interest in Novak properties, the estate, primary residences, and the majority of Damien's substantial investment portfolio. Generous provisions for Svetlana, ensuring her lifestyle would continue unchanged. Substantial trust funds for Katerina, guaranteeing she'd never have to work. Charitable donations to organizations that would burnish the Novak family reputation. Detailed instructions for maintaining the family legacy and business empire. Then Richard reached my section, and his voice faltered completely. "To Daniela Novak, I leave nothing. She has proven herself unworthy of the Novak name and has rejected this family's values at every opportunity. She has chosen a path that dishonors our legacy and has demonstrated through her choices that she does not deserve to benefit from the wealth this family has built. This is my final decision, and I make it with full conviction that she has earned this exclusion through her own actions." The silence that followed was absolute, heavy with expectation. Damien stared at me with obvious satisfaction, clearly expecting tears, begging, collapse, some display of devastation that would validate his cruelty. Instead, I smiled. A genuine smile that made confusion flicker across his face. "Is that everything?" I asked calmly. "No additional commentary on my unworthiness? No final lecture about my failures and disappointments?" His face flushed dark red with anger. "You find this amusing? After everything we've given you, you ungrateful." "Given me?" I cut him off, my voice rising. "What exactly did you give me, Damien? A lifetime of emotional abuse? A childhood spent believing I was fundamentally broken? 29 years of being treated like an unwanted burden in my own home? How dare you speak to me that way?" He started to stand, his voice dangerous. "In my own house, your house." I stepped forward, holding my ground. "Let's talk about what's actually yours and what isn't. Let's talk about truth for once in this family of liars." "You will watch your mouth," he roared, and his hand shot out faster than anyone could react, backhanding me across the face so hard my head snapped to the side. The blow split my lip and left my ears ringing. Svetlana gasped dramatically but didn't move to help. Alexei actually chuckled. Katerina kept filming, capturing it all for her phone. Richard stood up in shock, clearly horrified. "Get out of my house," Damien hissed, his face inches from mine. "You don't belong in this family. You never did." You're a disappointment, a failure, and I'm ashamed to call you my daughter. I touched my bleeding lip with steady fingers, then reached into my bag. You're absolutely right, I said, my voice eerily calm. I don't belong in this family. Because I'm not part of this family. I never was. I pulled out the envelope and handed it directly to Richard, whose hands shook as he opened it. I watched his face shift from confusion to shock to absolute horror as he read the DNA results. What is that? Damien demanded, trying to snatch the papers. Richard handed them over with trembling hands. I watched the color drain from Damien's face as he read, then return as rage read. This is fake. Some desperate scheme to, it's not fake, I said calmly. It's been verified by the FBI and confirmed by multiple independent laboratories. I'm not your daughter, Damien. I'm not Svetlana's daughter. My name isn't even Daniela Novak. It's Isabella Reyes, and I was kidnapped from my home in Manila, Philippines, when I was 6 months old. You bought me. Or stole me. The investigation is determining which. Svetlana's champagne glass fell from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. Alexei had gone completely still, his phone forgotten. Katerina's recording hand wavered. Richard looked like he might vomit. You're insane, Damien sputtered, but his eyes betrayed pure panic. This is some manipulation, some attempt to, the FBI is outside right now, I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Coordinated with Miami PD. They have enough evidence to arrest both of you for child trafficking, kidnapping across international borders, falsifying legal documents, and about a dozen other federal crimes. The only reason you're not already in handcuffs is because I asked them to let me do this first. To sit here and listen to you try to erase me one final time. To watch you perform your grand rejection, knowing that everything you've built is about to collapse. I turned to Richard, who looked absolutely stricken. That will is worthless, by the way. You can't disinherit someone who was never legally your child. And since Daniela Novak doesn't actually exist as a legitimate legal entity, all those carefully worded exclusions are meaningless. I'd suggest you start preparing for a massive malpractice lawsuit, because this is going to get very expensive for everyone involved. What do you want? Svetlana finally spoke, her voice hoarse with fear. Money? We can pay you to keep quiet about this. Name your price. The offer was so predictable, so perfectly in character, that I actually laughed. I don't want anything from you. I want you to know that my real parents, Ramon and Maria Reyes, have been searching for me for 29 years. They never stopped hoping. They never gave up. They loved me before they ever met me. And they're waiting in Manila to finally bring their daughter home. I looked at each of them one final time. Damien, his empire about to crumble. Svetlana, her social status about to become a punchline. Alexei, finally realizing his inheritance was built on crimes that would destroy everything. Katerina, still recording, probably already planning how to spin this for maximum victim sympathy from her followers. You were right about one thing, Damien, I said quietly. I don't belong here. I belong with people who know how to love. People who chose me because they wanted me, not because they bought me. Goodbye. I walked out of that library, out of that house, and gave Agent Williams the prearranged signal. As Marcus and I drove away, I watched in the rearview mirror as FBI agents and Miami police entered the Novak estate. Multiple vehicles, multiple agents, all converging on the family that had stolen my childhood. My phone buzzed with a video call from Manila. Ramon and Maria's faces appeared on the screen, tears streaming down their cheeks, arms outstretched as if they could hug me through the phone. Behind them, I could see Diego and Sofia, my brother and sister, also crying. Isabella, Maria said, her voice breaking on my real name. Our precious girl. Come home to us. For the first time in my entire life, I knew exactly where home was. That was 2 months ago, and everything has changed. Damien and Svetlana are facing federal charges, the evidence overwhelming. Chen Pharmaceuticals stock plummeted. The $199 million fortune has been frozen. I've moved to Manila temporarily, building relationships with my real family. Ramon and Maria are everything parents should be. Diego and Sofia have welcomed me completely. Marcus has been incredible, supporting me unconditionally through this nightmare. The trial begins in 3 months. I'll testify, face them in court, tell the truth about what they did. But I won't be alone. My real family will be there, standing beside me. As for the Novak fortune, I don't want their blood money. My real inheritance isn't measured in dollars. It's the family I've found, the identity I've reclaimed, and the truth that finally set me free. If something about your family has never felt right, trust that instinct. Seek answers. The truth might be painful, but living a lie is worse. Your real family might be out there waiting. Have you discovered something that changed your understanding of your family? Drop your story in the comments. Hit like if this resonated, and subscribe for more stories about family secrets and shocking truths. Share this with someone who needs to hear that feeling like they don't belong might be their intuition telling them something important. Thank you for listening. May you all find where you truly belong.